The 911 call came in just past 8:12 a.m. on a Tuesday. There's a man building a weaponized fence right now. He's armed. I think he has wolves. On paper, it probably sounded like an emergency, an active threat, maybe even a domestic terror report. But in reality, the armed man was me, Sheriff Colton Reyes, and the so-called weaponized fence. A 10-foot row of cedar posts meant to keep my sheep from wandering too close to the creek that had a bad habit of flooding after spring rains. I hadn't even known about the call until Deputy Miguel Torres pulled up in his cruiser, window down, one elbow hanging casually over the edge. He was grinning before he even came to a full stop. "You won't believe this one, Sheriff." I figured it was another false alarm, or maybe Old Man Hensley seeing aliens again. But then I spotted her, Karen Litchfield, standing at the edge of the gravel road like she was auditioning for a reality show about code enforcement. Sunglasses way too big for her face, a laminated clipboard in one hand like it was a deputy's badge, and that signature tight-lipped frown she wore like a uniform. I'd seen her before, always from a distance, usually peeking from behind one of the sycamores near the edge of my property, phone clenched like a detonator. She'd moved into the Silver Creek Equestrian Estates 6 months ago, a community that marketed itself as rustic living for the discerning modern family, which basically meant overpriced homes built for people who wanted the look of the countryside without any of the smells, noise, or actual labor. She didn't say hello, just marched right up to my fence line and pointed her clipboard at the post I was cementing. "You can't build that," she said flatly. "It violates community regulations. You're over the maximum height limit for perimeter fencing." I looked at her, then the post, then her again. Didn't say a word. I just turned my wrench one more time. That seemed to infuriate her more than if I'd cursed her out. "Sir, I'm going to have to report this," she said, puffing up like a hawk defending her nest. "There are children nearby, and this sort of hostile structure sends the wrong message to the community. It looks threatening." My farm was surrounded by nothing but meadows, a patch of woods, and a pond so dry it hadn't seen more than 2 inches of water since last August. No playgrounds, no kids, just sheep, one half-collapsed barn, and my 2 old dogs who spent more time asleep than awake. She snapped a photo of the fence and stomped back to her black luxury SUV. I didn't catch what she was yelling into the phone, but she was pointing a lot. 10 minutes later, a drone hovered overhead, and a patrol cruiser came crawling down my gravel drive. The drone? Probably hers. The cruiser? That's when things got funny. Torres stepped out, still half smiling. He walked up like this was just another Tuesday, which it was, because he already knew what was going on. Karen came jogging after him, huffing like she'd run a marathon in designer sandals. "Officer, thank God you're here." "That's him," she shouted, pointing at me like I had a bazooka slung over my shoulder. "He's building an illegal structure, and I have reason to believe he's harboring dangerous animals." Torres glanced at me, then at her, then back to me. "Ma'am," he said slowly, "your call said the individual was armed and erecting a threatening barrier." "Yes," she nodded furiously. I feared for my safety. That's when Torres motioned to the badge clipped to my hip. Karen's eyes finally landed on it. Her expression faltered. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. You're the sheriff?" she stammered. I dusted off my gloves and leaned one elbow against the cedar post. "Yup." She blinked, buffering like an old modem trying to catch a signal. "Well, I didn't know that. I thought you were just some rural handyman." Torres tried to contain his laugh, but failed. "Just to be thorough," he said, already pulling out his tablet. "Let's go ahead and play that 911 call back." Karen tried to protest, but her voice had already started playing. "He has wolves. They look trained." I couldn't help but laugh. "I've got sheep and 2 Great Pyrenees," I said, "and they sleep more than they bark." Karen fished around in her purse and pulled out a highlighted HOA pamphlet. "It's clearly outlined right here." Torres didn't even look at it. "Ma'am, this isn't HOA jurisdiction. It's county property. County regs allow up to 10 feet for agricultural fencing, especially if livestock are involved." Karen flushed beet red. She turned on her heel and stomped off, gravel crunching under her tires like furious punctuation marks. I turned to Torres. "Think that's the end of it." He shook his head. "She's HOA blooded. They escalate." He wasn't wrong. Because calling 911 on a sheriff? That was just Karen's opening move. The next morning, I found a laminated cease and desist note zip-tied to my front gate. It had a faux HOA letterhead, filled with flowery legal language and something called a visual harmony clause. I laughed so hard I woke the rooster. By noon, Karen returned. With backup, 3 HOA board members from her neighborhood, dressed like they were modeling for a fall edition of Passive Aggression Weekly. They parked their spotless SUVs at the edge of my gravel driveway like they were afraid the dirt might catch. One guy in loafers waved with the confidence of someone who'd rehearsed being righteous in a mirror. "We're here to address your noncompliance," he announced. I kept hammering. Karen stepped forward, gripping her clipboard like a sword. "Your fence height, the color, and the aggressive architectural posture of the structure." I looked up. "Architectural posture?" She nodded. "It creates a psychological barrier for the neighborhood." "I call it upright," I replied. "Keeps coyotes out." One of the board members began recording on his phone. "You're being documented for obstruction and disregard of community standards." I said nothing, just opened the gate and whistled. Out came my dogs, 2 massive white Pyrenees, tails wagging, looking like sleepy clouds with teeth. Karen shrieked. "Those are the wolves." He admitted it. They were gone faster than they'd arrived. 48 hours later, another knock. "Animal control." Officer Denise looked tired before she even spoke. "We got a complaint. Unlicensed predatory animals. Mind if I take a look?" I invited her in, showed her the papers, the registry, the fencing specs, the dog's vet records. Everything was in order. She laughed. "Last guy I visited had a llama living in his pantry." When I asked who filed the complaint, she handed me a hand-drawn map with "Danger Zone" written in glitter pen. I didn't need to guess. Saturday rolled around. Downtown Farmers Market. There was Karen, standing near the community bulletin board, pointing dramatically at a satellite printout of my farm. Phrases floated on the air: abuse of position, unauthorized fence militarization, corruption in rural offices. Someone filmed it. Later that night, a local teen uploaded the video. "Karen versus Sheriff, the Fence Wars." 40,000 views in 2 hours. My favorite comment: "Did she think she could out-cop the sheriff?" I knew we weren't done. Then came the fake notice. Laminated. Faux seal. Signed by a J. Michaels. Funny, J. Michaels retired 5 years ago. I went to his barbecue. And then sabotage. I walked the perimeter and saw it. Posts deliberately loosened, rails cracked with leverage. I checked the trail cam footage. There she was. 2:17 a.m. One tall figure. One short. Her voice on the recording. "If we do this right, we can force a takedown order." That was criminal trespass. And I had it all on camera. I sent Torres a message: "You're going to love this. Bring popcorn." We waited. 3 days later, the town hall. Karen showed up early, ready to speak truth. I waited until the end. Plugged in a USB. Played the footage. Her voice echoed across the room. "If we do this right." Gasps. Then silence. Then the slow-building whispers of "She really said that?" Karen stammered. "That could be anything. You can't prove." But the court of public opinion had already spoken. Within the week, formal charges. Trespass. Tampering. Filing false reports. Impersonating a public officer. The warrant for her accomplice? Already served. He folded instantly. News broke regionally. Headlines were brutal. Meme of the month: Karen screaming at a fence. Caption: "This is not psychological compliance." Even her own HOA turned on her. 2 board members resigned. One left me a note: "Sorry. We had no idea she was this far gone." The courtroom arraignment? I didn't go. Didn't need to. Judge Rickman presided. Wore boots under his robe. Once told a trespasser, "Apologize to that cow and get off my land." Karen tried to argue her case. The judge interrupted. "You thought the sheriff's fence was a threat because it was well built?" The room erupted. Karen didn't. She walked out invisible. Not legally, but socially. Her punishment wasn't a fine. It was becoming the punchline of her own saga. A week later, I was back at the fence. Same posts. Same rails. Same piece. A new neighbor drove up, jeans and ball cap. "Your Sheriff Reyes?" I nodded. He grinned. "Heard about the fence. Hell of a way to hold the line." I smiled. "Sometimes, it's not the fence that's the problem. It's who's yelling at it." That night, Torres sent me one last video. Karen, alone, tearing down her flyers, muttering to herself. No audience. No clipboard army. Just her. I sipped my coffee. Looked at the fence. Still standing. Still mine. Still peace. Earned peace. And on the other side, law and order.